right, good morning everybody. Thank you so much to Sigma Zeta and to all of you for allowing me to present the research that I've been working on for the past year for you this morning. I know everyone's getting antsy for some more donuts and coffee in the poster session, so just bear with me. But I'm very excited to bring a unique research presentation to you this morning on squirrel nesting sites on an urban college campus, specifically at Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. Now you're probably thinking, squirrels of all things, why squirrels? Well, I don't know about your specific campuses, but the squirrel population at Concordia College is a large part of our community. We actually even have our own Facebook page for our Concordia Squirrels. Squirrels of Concordia on Facebook if you want to look us up and give us a follow after my presentation, of course. We have about 800 followers right now, so that's pretty cool. But not only are they a large part of our population and our community at Concordia, but they're actually also, squirrels are one of the major game animals in America currently, and they play a large role in forest regeneration as seed dispersers. So on our campus at Concordia, we have well documented the presence of both gray and red squirrels. You can't really walk through campus without seeing at least one of them, either frolicking through the grass, chasing one another, foraging, or even jumping out of the garbage cans and scaring you half to death as you walk by. Now, I'm going to give you a little background information on the difference between the red and the gray squirrels and how they're able to so successfully coexist on our campus today. So red squirrels are known as larder hoarders, so larder meaning pantry. So they actually collect their food, which is cones of coniferous trees, in piles called caches. And they are also known to nest in coniferous trees. And they're also known to be territorial, so they're often chasing one another or chasing the gray squirrels especially out of their territory. Gray squirrels, on the other hand, are known as scatter hoarders. So they like to bury their acorns, their seeds, in random places throughout their habitat to protect it from competition. These gray squirrels, they like to nest in deciduous trees, and they are non-territorial, so they're very sociable animals and they actually interact with each other quite a bit. Now, throughout the past 3 years, we've had quite a few students report seeing flying squirrels when they're walking through campus at night. And flying squirrels had not yet been documented on our campus, and so we were wondering, are they really here? And if they're here, how many species are here? Well, we hypothesized that there could potentially be 2 species of flying squirrels at Concordia. The first being the southern flying squirrel. So, as you can see from the range map above, the range of the southern flying squirrel has not yet reached northern Minnesota, where our college is located. However, throughout the past 20 years, the range of the southern flying squirrel has actually been increasing northward, which is very interesting. So we thought it was very plausible that they could be making their way up to Moorhead, Minnesota. Southern flying squirrels are nocturnal, so they're active at night, which is very different from the gray and red squirrels that we see on our campus all the time. Their diet is a little bit different from the gray and red squirrels, as they eat a lot of fungi and lichens. They're known to cache their food just like the red squirrels on our campus, and they like to nest in deciduous trees, so that could pose potential competition with our gray squirrels on our campus. Now, we also thought that it was very possible for northern flying squirrels to be on our campus because their presence has been heavily documented in northern Minnesota in the past. However, as you can see with that range map, as the range of the southern flying squirrel has been increasing northward, the range of the northern flying squirrel has actually been decreasing out of northern Minnesota. And so that's why we weren't really sure which species could be, or if both are present on our campus. So again, northern flying squirrels are nocturnal, just like the southerns. They eat a lot of fungi and lichens again, but also feed on nuts and acorns, so there could be a little bit of competition for resources on campus if they're here. They are known to cache their food as well, and they like to nest in coniferous trees, so could pose potential competition for nesting with our red squirrels. So the purpose of my study was really to better gain a holistic understanding well-being of the squirrel community at Concordia College, and more specifically, the partitioning of resources and habitats for all squirrel species on our campus. So at first last fall, the main purpose and the main focus of my study was to successfully trap and document the presence of the first flying squirrel species at Concordia College. That was really exciting, and we were just really excited about it. And so we had the hopes of trapping them and then using radio telemetry and coloring the flying squirrels so that we could track their nesting patterns, and then use that data to then do further analysis on comparing the diurnal and nocturnal squirrel nesting and resource partitioning on our campus. So if they're there, how are these squirrels coexisting with each other? So we conducted 13 total trapping sessions over a 2-month period last fall. And each trapping session consisted of 6 trapping stations. So one trap was set on 6 different trees each time that we trapped. We set our traps at dusk, and then we checked the traps the following morning at dawn. And we had to set the traps at night because that's when they're active. They're active at night. And so our trapping results were actually kind of surprising. We got a lot of gray squirrels, and we weren't really intending to trap any of them. So we actually trapped 9 gray squirrels, 1 red squirrel, and on our very last trapping session, we caught the first northern flying squirrel at Concordia College. Now, unfortunately, that night that we had trapped was quite a chilly night. The temperatures dropped significantly lower than we had expected. Now, we had taken precaution and insulated the traps that we had set that night with cotton, but unfortunately, the northern flying squirrel did not make it in the cold weather throughout the night. So that was really sad for us. So we were not able to collar the northern flying squirrel. And now, because the temperatures are dropping, if you know anything about Minnesota, once the temperatures drop, they just keep dropping. They're relentless. And so we decided to cease our squirrel trapping because we did not want to pose any further risks to any of our squirrel species on campus. So instead, I had to transition the focus of my study onto nest characterization. Now, I specifically chose to characterize squirrel leaf nests, the conspicuous ones that are very open in broad daylight that you can see, and most of those were in deciduous trees. Now, it's almost impossible to not only locate, but also to characterize leaf nests in coniferous trees because of the heavy vegetation. And although we did have some telemetry data of locations of some leaf nests in coniferous trees on our campus, the sample size would have been so small that we wouldn't have been able to conclude anything significant from that. And so because I wanted a larger sample size, that's why I chose to do the conspicuous leaf nests in the deciduous trees on our campus. And so I characterized specifically 4 variables that I will be describing shortly. So we found 27 total leaf nests throughout our campus, and they were all on deciduous trees. We determined the nest height of every nest. We determined average branch coverage of each tree that had a leaf nest in it. We used current and previously recorded data on campus trees to analyze both the tree species as well as the maturity and size of the tree using DBH values, DBH being the diameter of rest height, and the diameter of rest height value is related to both the maturity and size of the tree. And then we also did some spatial mapping of the squirrel leaf nests on our campus. So I kind of wanted to just give you guys a little bit of a visualization of how we calculated leaf nest height, because we didn't take ladders out and like take a huge measuring tape out there or anything. So we used what's called a clinometer. So this is, let's see if I can get the laser. Yeah, so this is the male version of me, and I stood a certain distance away from wherever the leaf nest was in the tree, and I used what's called a clinometer, which you see here. And I used a clinometer to measure the angle at which I was looking at the nest. So I kind of like put the nest in my target, and my research partner came around and measured the angle at which the clinometer read. So we recorded this angle, and then my research partner measured the distance that I was standing away from the location of the nest in the tree. And now, because this is a Math and Science Honor Society, everybody knows that that's a right angle, right there in the left corner. And so using that right triangle, we used some trigonometry data to, some calculations to get the nest height. So what we did is we took the tangent of our angle that we reported, and we set that equal to the value x, which we wanted to find, divided by the distance that we had measured. And then we solved, oh, that looks messy, sorry about that. So then we solved for x, and then from there we measured y. Now y was the distance from my feet all the way up to my eye level. And then simply we just took x plus y and we got our nest height. So we did this for each nest that we had characterized. So like I had said, 27 total squirrel leaf nests, and out of these 27 leaf nests, we found that they were located in 4 genera of trees on our campus. All leaf nests were located pretty close to the main trunk of the tree, usually on a main branch of that tree for just for stability purposes. And the leaf nest materials were very consistent across all of the nests characterized. So just to give you a little bit of a background on what kind of trees that our squirrels have to choose from to nest in. So we have 19 genera of trees on our campus for which they chose to nest in. And so in total we have 673 trees on our campus that do not have nests in them, and that includes all 19 of that genera. So these are the 4 genera of trees that we found the nests in. So what you would probably know as white ash, white poplar, American basswood, and the American elm. Some characteristics that we found was the average nest height was 9.1 meters above the ground. The average branch coverage was 72.5%. We found that there was about 1.2 nests in each tree. So most trees had only 1 nest in them. We found a few trees with 2 nests in them, and 1 tree even had 3 leaf nests in them. So that was really interesting. And then the average DBH we found to be 107 centimeters. And then the tree species with the most leaf nests was actually the American elm. Now this is kind of interesting because some of us may know that the American elm species in America has been on the decline because of the Dutchwood elm disease. And in Moorhead, Minnesota, just like elsewhere in America, our elm population is decreasing. So we found it very interesting that most of our leaf nests were found in our elm trees, because this could pose a significant problem in the future if our squirrels have to move their nest to a new species of tree. Also important to note here is we have a lot of American basswood trees on our campus, and it looks like our squirrels are not choosing to nest in those trees. However, it's also important to note that we only have 4 populous trees on our campus, and 2 of those trees, so half of them, have squirrel leaf nests in it. And so we're actually wondering, if we had more populous trees on our campus, would the squirrels relocate their leaf nests to the populous trees, or would the total number of leaf nests increase? So this is something that we would like to look more into in the future. And now here you see the mean nest height across the 4 species of trees. And we found that it was that the nests in the populous trees were significantly higher than in the other trees, and significantly lower in the American basswood trees. And we think that the nests might be higher in the populous trees due to the structure of the populous trees. They're often very tall and very straight. So another important thing that we would like to look further into. And now here, mean DBH of trees with nests and without nests, and we found that that the DBH of trees with nests had a significantly higher DBH than those without nests. So then we looked at it a little bit further, and across the 4 species of trees with leaf nests in them, and found that we observed that same pattern, that the squirrels are choosing to build their leaf nests in trees with a larger DBH, so more mature trees and trees of a larger size. And here, this is a spatial map that we created using GIS. of the squirrel leaf nests on our campus, and we plan to do additional spatial analysis of variables related to the location of these leaf nests on our campus. So we're very excited that we have found a successful trapping method to trap all 3 species of squirrel on Concordia campus. So we plan to continue to use this in the future. And future studies will use this data in order to further characterize squirrel nests on our campus, to use this in order to analyze the resource and habitat partitioning on our college campus. I would like to say a special thank you to my research advisor, Dr. Joseph Whitaker, for leading me throughout this research project. I was really excited that I was part of the team that first caught our northern flying squirrel, because this has been a long time coming, and we had a lot of people who doubted their presence on our campus, so it was very exciting. I would also like to thank Concordia College Biology Department and the mammalogy students for helping and assisting with trapping. I'd like to thank Jessica Watson for her GIS campus tree database that she created, Elizabeth Robinson and Peter Bergquist for their DVH data on our campus trees, and of course Sigma Zeta. Thank you so much for allowing me to present and for the research grant that allowed me to do this research project. So we didn't specifically look at that as I just looked at the squirrel leaf nest, but especially in the winter months, that is a large part of their nesting is in, because they have way more protection when they actually go inside of the tree. But we would have to use radio telemetry in order to track that, and we have yet to do that, but that is a plan for our future research.
So how many of the trees you believe was the nest actually have a nest inside the tree?
We didn't look at that. We only did we only studied the conspicuous leaf nests, but there were a lot of the deciduous trees are the ones that have the the tree dens that the squirrels go into, especially in the winter because it gets very cold. And so, but we did not document this, and so that has yet to be documented as well.
For your nests that have, or your trees that have multiple nests, was there any evidence indicating that they were all being used? Some of them abandoned?
So in the winter months, most of the squirrels are abandoning their leaf nests. There was only one occurrence where we actually saw a gray squirrel in the leaf nest when we were characterizing it. But in the winter months, they try to go either inside, or some of the red squirrels even go underground to nest, just to get out of the winds, out of the cold weather, and so.
You were able to get close to look past the nest. Do you know if you would be able to see what type of squirrel might be built that nest based on anything? Like, would you be able to say, oh, this nest looks like it was built by a flying squirrel as opposed to a red squirrel, gray squirrel, or something like that?
Sure. So the gray squirrels, the red squirrels, and the southern flying squirrels are known to use leaf nests. The northerns sometimes use leaf nests, but they're not as dependent on leaf nests as the other 3 species of squirrel, which was really interesting. They all 4 use the tree dens, and then the red squirrels also are known to go underground to nest. So they're, not that I know of, I don't think that there's any way that I could look at a leaf nest and say a gray squirrel built this or a red squirrel, but depending on the species of tree, if it's in a conifer, it's most likely a red squirrel or one of the species of flying squirrels. So there's no way to look at one in a deciduous tree and say, I know for a fact that a gray squirrel, unless we track them with radio telemetry and found them in that nest. That would be the only way.
So if you extended that to looking at the nest in the tree itself, would there, I guess I'm wondering if there's another way you look at CO says it's flying squirrels here, other than actually tracking the squirrel, or in more cases when it's not practical to track a squirrel or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's no way that I currently know of to be able to just look at something and say for sure a flying squirrel was here. The flying squirrels are known to also nest up in nest boxes or bird feeders. But it's Minnesota, so if any squirrel can get inside, they're probably going to, because it's just very cold and they're seeking warmth, they're seeking shelter for survival purposes. So
one of your slides, you said that one species is a little more aggressive than the other. At least on our campus, the normal skittish squirrel has grown this hyper steal lunch off your table aggressiveness. Was that something you noticed on your campus where they're exposed to more people, they become slightly more aggressive?
we've never had squirrels like become aggressive with us, like against the humans, I guess. I've never heard of that before. We often see the red squirrels chasing our gray squirrels, and it's kind of funny because the red squirrels are a lot smaller than the gray squirrels, and the gray squirrels could probably beat up on them, but they don't. So yeah, but they've never really, I don't know, they get really close to you, which is really cool because they're used to people walking around all the time, but they've never shown any aggressiveness towards us. And there's so many dumpsters around campus that they go in the garbage can, and that's where they get their extra food, all the food. Yeah.
Is there a feel for how the squirrel concentration in Concordia, the density of squirrels compares to say a similar kind of area off campus, are we anomalous in having a higher squirrel mobility?
So we haven't specifically done that comparison yet, but I know that my research advisor, Dr. Joseph Whitaker, does squirrel tracking at Itasca State Park, which is 2 hours north of our campus. And flying squirrel presence is much higher at Itasca, but then again, there's more forest, there's more trees to choose from there for nesting purposes, so that might be why.
Can you also go back to the map for a second? The campus map of the trees. So the 4 trees that you're making, I don't remember which flavor we were talking about, like the 4 trees, there's only 4 of on campus. Give it a name. The poplars. Where are those located across the campus? Are those clustered or is basically are those spread?
So that we're going to be doing analysis within the coming weeks on all of that, like what species are located near each other, and does that make a difference in where the nests are located?
Just for our
Where?
on the kind of far left.
This is my campus. I want to go here.
So they're kind of, as far as the left, down and down. Yeah, it's very, right there.
That would open to this world.
Yeah.